This is a series that we launched last year as a way for all of you, our candidates, our colleagues, our community to learn a little bit more about what our faculty are engaging in when they're not in the classrooms, working with young people or working with candidates. They're out in the communities, they're collaborating with other scholars, and this is a nice chance for us to really elevate that work and share what we're doing. So again, thank you all for being here. Today, our presenter is my wonderful colleague, Dr. LaVada Taylor. Dr. Taylor, as you may know, is an associate professor at PNW in the School of Education and Counseling. Her area of research is really around post-colonialism and culturally relevant or culturally sustaining pedagogy. Her presentation today is titled, it's called, I Got You, Creating Learning Environments that Encourage Inquiry and Avoid Challenging Behavior. I also want to acknowledge that Dr. Taylor's book is recently out on the market, and the title of that is Implications of Race and Racism in Student Evaluations of Teaching, The Hate You Give. And without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Taylor to the presentation today. Thank you all.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So I want to first say thank you all so much for sharing your time with me and coming out. And you all know that my preference is to be face-to-face, but I'm learning this whole technological space, so bear with me just a little bit, okay? So I'm going to share my screen. I did my first Prezi, woohoo, which is what I'm going to give you all today, or what we're going to do. So I'm going to start there. All right. I'm going to start over. All right, so while I get this together, maybe I should stop my share. Yeah. The presentation is going to work around a few questions, and Amanda is going to be here to help us with this parking lot piece. Again, it's techie, so we'll be kind of going back and forth in terms of sharing our screen. But I'd like for you all to write down these 4 questions, because periodically there's going to be an opportunity for us to have discussion around these questions as a part of the presentation. Okay, so the first question is, why are teachers so concerned with classroom management? Number 1, why are teachers so concerned with classroom management? Okay. Number 2, are our students, some, all, or just a few, from the east and west side of Gary and Northwest Indiana, Gary, formerly known as the steel capital of the world, are they really bad? Are our students, some, all, or just a few children from the east and west side of Gary, Indiana, or Northwest Indiana, formerly known as the steel capital of the world, really bad? And number 3, how can education take place in an impoverished, unstable, and unpredictable environment? How can education take place in an impoverished, unstable, and unpredictable environment? How can education take place in an impoverished, unstable, and unpredictable environment? And number 4, what role does classroom management play in these environments? What role does classroom management play in these environments? Simply stated, can education take place in chaos? Simply stated, can education take place in chaos? All right, so I got you. Creating classroom environments that promote inquiry and avoid challenging behavior. Let's try this. Oops. Curious kids. Only when we challenge or when we change a system that traps so many Americans in a struggle to meet their basic needs will we create an economy defined by opportunity and the chance for everyone to thrive. Dr. Martin Luther King. The oppressor truly helps the oppressed only when he stops viewing them as an abstract category and sees them as unique persons who have been unjustly dealt with, deprived, and cheated. This requires an end to pious, individualistic gestures and risking an act of love. Paulo Freire. Recently, while talking with a friend who is a veteran teacher with over 40 years of experience, a retiree from a local urban area school district in Northwest Indiana, and currently working as an educator in Gary Community School Corporation, I asked her this question. What is the one thing teachers most worry about in the classroom? Totally unaware of the presentation that I was giving today, she replied, classroom management. Baffled, and much like the question I'm asking each of you today, my response to her was, why? Why are teachers so concerned with classroom management? So this is not rhetorical. Those of you that have me in class know I like to talk. I want to hear your voices and I want to hear your thinking. So I'm going to stop my share and ask the question. I think Amanda's going to help us with this. Why are teachers so concerned with classroom management?
I think they're concerned with classroom management because without some level of classroom management, it's kind of hard to run a classroom. I mean, there has to be some sort of structure in order for everyone to be able to learn, in my opinion.
Okay, I would agree. So there needs to be some structure in the environment so everybody can learn. Okay, what else? Why are folks so concerned with it?
Is that like how you said that learning can't take place if there is chaos?
Okay, learning can't take place if there's chaos. We'll play with that. There's these notions called chaos theory that would argue that it can, but for our purposes, we're like, okay.
Organized chaos.
Yes! Like an organized chaos. Yes, yes, yes. Any other ideas about why we're so concerned about classroom management?
I think classroom management connects to like consistency, and consistency is really like key with students.
Okay, so the connection with consistency, and students kind of have a routine and expectations of what is expected of them and their behaviors and outcomes. Okay, that's important. Any other ideas? Callie Morgan is saying important to reduce distractions so that students can focus and learn. Yes, important to reduce distractions so that students can focus and learn. Very good. Any other responses?
I'll jump in. So I think that we tell our teachers that it's real, like it's part of what we do. It's what teachers do is manage their classrooms.
Yes. So it's innate in the responsibility. If you have the job as a teacher, you need to be able to control and manage that classroom. All right, very good. Any other ideas about why it's so important?
Could it be like you're responsible for these children?
Yes, yes. So you're responsible for their safety, right? You're responsible for their learning on local parentis. I'm sure many of you remember that little phrase, in lieu of the parent, there's the teacher. So literally, as the teacher, we are responsible for our young people in our classrooms. Very good. Any other ideas? No? Okay. And I'll go back and share my screen. Okay, I don't know what happened. That was scary. Okay, let's move on. Then she stated the following. The laws have changed. So again, I'm asking this question about like, what's all the whoop? Why is everyone so concerned about classroom management? The laws have changed. Things are not like they used to be. These kids are bad. No longer are you supposed to put your hands on children, but I don't have these problems because I love my children and they know it. When kids act up in my class, I put them out. Taken aback that she could put kids out of her classroom while recognizing that laws had changed, I replied, "Do you send them to the office?" "Nope," she replied. Me now in a tizzy, looking bug-eyed and worried about her and her students. In my teacher voice, I said, that's illegal. What if they wander off outside and get hurt? Then you and the district would be liable. Schooling me as she often does, since she is my elder, she then informed me of a particular situation that previously happened in her classroom. She stated, one day, this little boy was up disrupting my classroom. I told the boy to sit down nicely and do his work like the other children. He kept going. I politely touched him on his shoulder and led him to his seat. Before I knew it, he was up again. Now he's a runner. He likes to run around the room and in the hallways and stuff. I told my para to guard the door. The next thing I knew, I got him. I grabbed that little boy and put him in a chokehold and dragged him to his desk. I sat there at his desk with him in that chokehold while I taught my class. The next day, he came back to class and was ready to learn. Though her story was both thought-provoking and the image somewhat funny, I could not help but wonder if her response to and with this little boy would it have been different if she was teaching at a different school? If she was teaching in Crown Point or Chesterton or Valparaiso? In any of these contexts, would she have thought that the little boy whose skin might have been a tiny bit lighter or whose parents a bit more affluent was bad? Or would she have seen this student as having too much energy, restless, in need of an extra recess, or simply frustrated and in need of a different pedagogical approach? Her story led me to more questions and provided me with the second question for today's presentation, which is, are our students, some, all, or just a few children from the east and west side of Gary, Northwest Indiana, formerly the steel capital of the world, are they really bad? What do you all think? Are children really bad? Or do we expect them to be bad and therefore respond to their behavior? Behavior no different than any other school-age child based on notions of deficit theories and preconceived notions of what it means to be a child living in poverty.
I guess the thing that pops into my head whenever I hear this question is like, well, what do you mean by bad? You know, like, why are you the judge of if a student is good or bad? What does that mean? You know, you don't know what that kid is going through. So I think it's wrong to make assumptions about a kid just because of what you think they are. Like, you don't know them like outside of school.
Excellent. Yes. So yesterday in class in 355, maybe Megan can pick up on this, but we talked about the subjective nature of kind of coding behavior and how exactly what you said, what may be bad to you in a particular context may not be deemed bad in another context. Yeah. Any other thoughts about whether or not children, is it possible for children to be bad?
Well, going back to like what I told you in class, how I work at the Boys and Girls Club, I work with like a lot of variety of different children. And I don't think any child is bad. I think they only know what they've been taught. Like, they're born not knowing anything, so they only know what they've seen and what their parents have taught them. So in that context, like they can't be bad because they don't know good, maybe.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. I like that. Can't be bad because we don't even know what quantifies as good. Okay. Well, according to Gorski, deficit theory is based on assumptions educators make about students. These assumptions are based on ideas that students from low SES backgrounds are automatically behind, are deficit academically, and have behavior problems. Grappling with Oscar Lewis' work, The Children of Sanchez, a piece later highlighted as the underlining of Ruby Payne's A Framework of Understanding Poverty, now in its 4th edition, Foley notes Payne's use of a culture of poverty to represent the poor as belonging to a single group, a particular culture with particular characteristics. Specifically, he notes, and I quote, "The list of cultural traits of the poor evokes a powerful negative image of poor people as lazy, fatalistic, hedonistic, violent, distrustful, people living in common law unions, as well as dysfunctional, female-centered, authoritarian families who are chronically unemployed and rarely participate in local civic activities, vote, or trust the police and political leaders." Please be mindful that I by no means agree with the notion of deficit theory or Ruby Payne's use of a culture of poverty. My thoughts and affinity are more closely in line with the works of Gloria Lasson-Billings' notion of a poverty of culture. In this analysis, poverty is not a culture. Rather, it is a byproduct of structural conditions within a cultural context that perpetuates poverty. For example, high rates of unemployment and underemployment for many residents in Gary has led to an impoverished community. An impoverished community has limited resources to feed and provide for its family. Lack of resources also means, more often than not, higher rates of homelessness, transiency, food deserts, and crime. A slippery slope that our children did not create. However, our students, the children of Gary, the children of Northwest Indiana, live in these conditions, yet they are not these conditions. Horace Mann said that education is the great equalizer, which brings me to my 3rd set of questions for today. How can education take place in an impoverished, unstable, unpredictable environment? And what role does classroom management play in these environments? Simply stated, can education take place in chaos? So now I'm going to go back to Amanda so I can see and hear your thoughts. Okay. How can education take place in an impoverished community, an impoverished, unstable, and unpredictable environment, excuse me, and what role does classroom management play in these environments?
Maybe being even more understanding and forgiving than a not unstable environment.
Okay.
Like if kids aren't having breakfast, like they're gonna not be in the mood in the morning, you know?
That's right. That's true, right? So being hungry or any number of different social conditions can impact whether they're alert and they're ready to learn, their behavior. So being compassionate to the possibilities of things that are going on within their environment. Excellent. What other ideas?
I think one thing is making sure you're not so focused on, being super strict because maybe you do think like your students might be bad. Like making sure that you come at your teaching, not only like being authoritative, but also empathetic.
Yes. Yes, I love that word, empathy. I do. Any other ideas? Okay, so I'll go back. Searching for answers to these questions for just a moment, let's go back to my conversation with my friend. As an educator in Gary, She started our conversation sharing that the laws have changed. Things are not like they used to be. No longer are you supposed to put your hands on children. In 1977, Ingram v. Wright Supreme Court decision, the court ruled that school corporal punishment is constitutional, leaving schools to decide whether or not to allow it. And 19 states chose to allow it. Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Wyoming, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Michigan, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Indiana. Now some interesting facts. Number one, most of the states that allow corporal punishment are in the South, with just a few in the Midwest and West. Number two, the 1977 ruling was at a time when many states were in their primacy of forced desegregation. Number three, today, less than 0.5% of states allow corporal punishment. Number four, states that continue to allow corporal punishment have a greater percentage of children in their general population, a higher rate of child poverty and child mortality, lower per pupil education expenditures than states that have banned corporal punishment. So I'm going to repeat that again. States that continue to allow corporal punishment have a greater percentage of children in the general population, a higher rate of child poverty and child mortality, lower per pupil education expenditures than states that have banned corporal punishment. Finally, number five, though corporal punishment is still legal in the state of Indiana, school districts are left to decide if the practice will be used. In 2016, corporal punishment was prohibited in Gary Community School Corporations. Now, let's look at her next statement. I love my children and they know it. Eric Jensen, in his work, Engaging Students with Poverty in Mind, notes that in order for low SES students to buy into the academic game and see it valuable, teachers must gain their trust. This should be done by learning about students and their backgrounds in a true and meaningful way. Also, teachers must be genuine in their interaction with their students. Failure to make these connections is likely to demotivate low-income students. Finally, my friend shared, I sat at his desk with him in that chokehold while I taught my class on engagement. Engaging young people in their own learning may be one of the best ways that teachers can work to help their students take more ownership and become invested in their education. Here, I'm not suggesting that we engage students by holding them in a chokehold. Yes, this is illegal. But also in this scenario, she took responsibility for her students' learning. Though he was forced to participate in the classroom instruction, was he really invested in the learning process? As such, nor am I suggesting that we force feed meaningless information to our students through ditto sheets, memorization, resuscitation, and regurgitation. Rather, I'm asking, how can you as teachers and future teachers of our best and brightest navigate classroom spaces through questioning, curiosity, and interest? How can you create meaningful learning experiences where students are held accountable for their own learning while setting high expectations for each and every student to succeed? How do you challenge students with higher order thinking opportunities? How do you provide endless educative moments for students to analyze, synthesize, evaluate, and create new meanings? In this process, how do you engage students in learning environments and create an educational milieu to encourage inquiry and avoid challenging behavior? So that's our fourth question. So I'm going to stop and ask Amanda if she can share. So how do you do this? How do you create these engaging learning environments? What's our tricks?
The culturally relevant stuff,
The culturally relevant stuff. What does that mean, Megan?
like things that they would be interested in, but also applying it to your actual what's supposed to be taught.
Okay, so making it applicable, that things that they're interested in, things that are a part of their culture, right? Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Or like the community as well.
Yes, yes. So bringing in community, understanding that. What else? So we talked a little bit about culturally relevant pedagogy yesterday. So what is that notion? What is culturally relevant pedagogy? We know that there are 3 tenets to that thing. What are the 3 tenets? And it makes it a little different than multicultural education, for example. What are the 3 tenets? Does anyone know or have an idea? No? Okay, so 3 tenets of culturally relevant pedagogy. 1, according to Gloria Ladson-Billings, is the expectation of high academic achievement. In other words, there is no dumbing down of nothing. Education should be challenging and stimulating, right? So your expectation, no matter where the children are located, is that they can succeed and you don't have to pare down. The second tenet of culturally relevant pedagogy is on the onus of the teacher, where the teacher is responsible for becoming bicultural. In other words, he or she have to recognize that they come into the space of an educational environment from a particular cultural frame and understand the cultural frame of their students. How do you connect? And this is racial and it's deeper than racial. We're talking about race, we're talking about class, we're talking about gender. We can talk about music and hip hop and culture, just all the different nuances that constitute this thing called culture and constitutes or embedded in the lives of the children that we're teaching, right? So we have to become bicultural. And then the third thing is understanding or having a sense of socio-political consciousness. In other words, we understand that power and oppression, that they exist and how those nuances operate within that classroom context, right? So those are the 3 tenets of culturally relevant pedagogy. All right. So based on that and having that understanding, the question is, how do we engage our students with that? So we got this cultural knowledge, we got this toolkit. Now what are we going to do with it? No ideas?
Apply it somehow.
Okay, apply it. How? How do we engage our students? One way is through questioning, right? Having them to respond. And another way is decentering ourselves as like the grand poobahs of knowledge, where we're just dispensing stuff and students are like little receptacles taking all this in, and teachers having no clue whether or not they truly understand the information being taught. So kind of de-shifting or reshifting the paradigm in terms of how information flows and recognizing that young people, right, also are embedded with knowledge that can support that teacher, and that knowledge is something that's very fluid and constantly being created. Okay. All right. Go and I'll finish. Okay. Next, using a piece of paper, because I don't have any to provide for you, create a scenario of your ideal lesson. There are no textbooks or ditto sheets allowed in this lesson. In your scenario, what strategies and questions will you use to create your lesson in a meaningful and engaging way for your students? So yeah, we got to work a little bit. You have this ideal lesson. This is the dream lesson. I don't have to be bothered with standards, none of that. This is the lesson that I most want to teach. How will you teach it in a way that it is engaging and exciting for students? So I'm gonna set my timer. We got 10 minutes to construct this. It has to be something that you're really interested in. Amanda, is it possible for us to play music or something? No?
Yep, I'll get them pulled up.
Thank you. I'll do the Jeopardy song in the meanwhile. Ash Wednesday, we can go with some good old New Orleans style music. about 5 more minutes. That's our time. So, for some of these visionary lessons, how about Ashley? Ashley, Claudia, are you still here?
Yes. I don't know what happened.
What would the ideal topic be? If you could teach anything in the world, what would it be?
I'm sorry, hold on. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if I was still muted or not. My screen went wonky. So I'm sorry, I'm driving, so I just kind of thought of some things. But one thing that I think that I would want to incorporate is maybe like focus on like civics, and maybe do some kind of connecting with the community and coming up with a project on how to get well connected with the community and things to be actively involved and give the students a choice.
Yeah, I'm saying because choice, teachers forget that choice is a conduit of power. That's Michelle Foucault, girl. That's some heavy philosophizing you doing there. Yes, we forget about choice. Okay, go ahead. Excellent. So do you have, what topic would you, and that's community-based, that you, what topic moves your spirit? What would you want to teach? Recognizing that students may say, nah, that's wonky, I don't want to do that.
When you say topics, do you mean like a specific subject or content area, or just something to focus on as like a theme?
All of the above.
So like I said, maybe like I feel dorky because Dr. Vaughn's here, and I'm definitely pulling from the stuff that we've been learning with her and Dr. Keegan. I was actually a paraprofessional for the school city of Hammond one year in a least restrictive classroom of 8 students who were kicked out of their home schools. And they didn't have a teacher to fill the role, so they kind of just got this random person and put them on an emergency license, teaching license. And he was trying to relate to the students. And, our students we had one Mexican student and the rest of our students were African-American. And the teacher was white. And so he also wasn't from this area. And I think that he was really trying to connect. And he had done like this biographical expedition to Africa and learned some Swahili. And so I think that he was trying to connect with the students, was like, oh, I'm going to present my movie to you guys and teach you guys some Swahili. And they were like,
what? I know nothing about Africa. That has nothing to do with me, right?
I know. And so, after we watched the movie, he was like, so what you guys think? And they were like, no, we hated it. And he was like, okay, so what do you guys want? What do you guys want to learn? What do you guys want to do? And a lot of our students were lower level readers. And so they actually chose that they wanted to focus on music and lyrics. And so we actually did we didn't have any books. We only had a math book, but we focused on literature, and we did like a poetry unit, and we focused on Tupac Shakur's Concrete Rose poem. And we were able to teach them about rhyme and stanzas.
Yes.
And so I think about that when I think about this. It's kind of hard to make up something off the fly. I wasn't able to write anything down, but
that's phenomenal, Ashley. I'm sorry for cutting you off. That's excellent. So you write that down as soon as you get home, so you can put that in your
okay.
Yeah. And I love Tupac. So the Hate You Give, my book, comes from Thug Life and his use of that term.
Yeah, I haven't read that book or seen the movie yet. It's definitely on my reading list and my movie list.
I'm talking about the song Thug Life. What you talking about?
Oh, I'm talking about The Hate You Give.
Oh, okay. Yes. All right. Excellent. How about Isabel? Isabel Garcia?
Hi. So do you mean like what topic I would just want to teach in general, like when I go into teaching?
Yeah, like if there was anything in the world. So you all always trying to put me in a box. I ain't no box.
Yeah.
If there's anything in the world that you could teach, anything that you wanted to teach, what would it be?
I guess it kind of goes into what I do want to do later on with teaching, but if anything, really, I would want to teach human anatomy. I just liked classes like that so much, and even went on to do human gross anatomy where I like did the cadaver bodies and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so I'm a history nerd. Formaldehyde just makes me sick. So how you gonna make me interested in that whole human anatomy kind of thing?
I didn't think that I would be too interested in it like in the beginning either until I got into the class and I started learning more and more and stuff about that. And I think it was just something more tangible that you can see rather than reading in a book and then trying to imagine the cell and stuff, actually being able to see the body and then work with the body later on and stuff. That was really interesting for me.
Okay, so you're gonna bring me a cadaver? Are you gonna give me a big heart? What you giving me so I can see?
Huh.
Yeah,
Not,
no, yet.
no, not yet.
A sheep. You gotta. I remember taking anatomy, and I had the professor brought a mouse. That was the worst thing he could have done. Because I saw the mouse, he was alive, and then he killed the mouse. I'm like, I'm done with this class. I'm done with you. That's life. Over. Ran out of that class. But okay, you get the gist, and I get it too. So you're saying you're gonna make sure I have something there so that I can see, and if we're talking about osmosis, I'm gonna be able to see the permeation of the blood and the cells, and it's not just gonna be in a textbook, right?
Right.
All right, I'm good with that. All right, Megan.
Okay, I wrote it realistically, like, oh, I'm gonna be a teacher for history. I should write about history. But if I could teach anything, it would be cooking. But I wrote about the Vietnam War, and I wanted to be like show the cause and effects, and like kind of relate it back to like how young people on TikTok, which is the social media, and how that like once one thing goes viral, everyone likes to follow that trend, so the cause and the effect. And I thought to like cover lots of different interest areas. It could be related to like music, clothing, media, politics, civilians, weapons, geography, economy, environment, and the nail industry, because all of that has some kind of connection to the Vietnam War.
Yes. Well, that's good. So you really need to write it up. And so how are you gonna? So I pretend, because you all know I do love history, right? So pretend I'm not a history buff. And I was born in 1999, so I don't know anything about no Vietnam. So why should I be so interested in that? And yeah, TikTok is cool, but
well, that's why I try to include like lots of like music is fun to look at, clothing, like when I say clothing, I mean fashion. And the nail industry for girls, that could be, and boys, it could be really interesting because of the civilians that got brought back, and that's why there's a lot of Vietnamese nail artists now, because they were taught how to do nails. And I thought that was like very interesting to learn about a war,
Yes, and a way for the people to have economic opportunities, right? Yeah. Okay. That's good. Well, since Dr. Vaughn is on this set, and I know folks know Dr. Vaughn. Dr. Vaughn, can you please share your ideal lesson?
So I reflected on, out of my years of teaching, what lesson did I like the most? What would I like to repeat? And relate it to your topic. My best lesson was one that I did not create at all, that my students basically took over my class. So it was February, and I had planned a 5-minute bell ringer on ways to celebrate Black History Month. And my third period class decided that we should be celebrating it much more intentionally in our Afrocentric arts infused high school. So they negotiated a 3-week unit where they got to put on a public performance for the community celebrating Black History Month. So we used the standards, which were related to teaching the progressive era. And I'll just tell you my favorite thing. One group created an art exhibit of Madam C.J. Walker, where they were pretending to be in a beauty salon. Madam C.J. Walker was a portrait on the wall, and she busted through the picture frame and came out and did a living history performance of who she was and why it mattered to the community. The students also decided to honor a teacher and a student as folks who exemplify role models in the community, and they awarded those folks awards at their assembly. So I did not create it, and I would not have created something nearly as cool, but I allowed them to create it and tell me what resources they need to do it well, and I facilitated their learning over 3 weeks.
Excellent, 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 excellent. All right, you all. So this pretty much concludes my presentation. It is my hope that by creating this presentation in a way that deliberately, though I didn't tell you all what I was doing, addresses different learning styles, visual, the ARIO, reading and writing, the kinesthetics, and each learning modality, the way learners process information analytically, dynamically, innovatively, and just good old common sense, that this presentation has been useful in providing just a bit of information to understand the way children learn and how to create learning environments that encourage inquiry and avoids challenging behaviors. Thank you all for your time. If you have any questions.
Can I, hey, LaVada, I just want to let you know that I put the teaching tolerance in your box.
Okay, I'll be up tomorrow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I know we have come right up to the end of our time together. So many of you are working with Dr. Taylor and Dr. Vaughn this semester in your classrooms and in the field. So I encourage you to continue this conversation. I want to share that as a kindergarten teacher, I never talk about classroom management. So I saw lots of learning in chaos, and I'd love to talk with you, any of you, about that any more time. You just find me over here in CLO, and we can talk about the non-management of young people and little people in classroom spaces. So Dr. Taylor, you've given me a lot to think about. I want to thank you for your very provocative presentation today. Best of luck, and everybody be safe, be warm, and I can't wait until we can all be together in person to talk more. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.